Welcome back. Today I'm looking at a 2002 Dodge Durango. Just did an oil pan on it, replaced the oil pan. It was corroded, was leaking a little bit, and noticed that the driver's side axle seal out of the front differential is leaking pretty badly as well. So today we're going to pull that apart and replace that axle seal in the front differential. So this side, this is driver's side, and this CV axle, this half shaft, was just replaced, not by me, but somebody else. Grease all over the place. It must have had a bad boot on it before, so I'm actually going to clean this up just a little bit before I get into it, try to keep the grease from getting all over me, and maybe we can keep it somewhat clean. But we have to take this half shaft off. We're going to remove the caliper. Take the rotor off, undo the axle, the spindle nut. I'm going to take this half shaft out in order to get to the intermediate shaft that goes into the differential in the front. So first I'm just going to clean up some of this mess. This is just from this boot. It must have been a bad boot on the CV joint. Slinging grease all over the place in here. That's what it looks like, at least. All over the outside of the caliper. Just everything here. I'll clean it off. Don't need it getting all over everything. Just makes a mess. Alright, so I'll finish cleaning that and we'll pull that caliper off. It's all over the sway bar down here. Just grease everywhere. Nice if they actually took the 2 minutes to actually clean some of it up. But obviously, I guess that's too much to ask. You can see new ball joint. It's like new upper and lower ball joint done at the same time, probably as the at least an upper ball joint done at the same time that the CV axle was done. See if we can remove this caliper. I'm guessing this is 7mm, but I could be wrong. But it's 7mm. Loosen this caliper. Come on, just in there. There we go. The bottom slide pin as well. That's coming out. That's a good thing. That's kind of strange. Two different sizes. My guess is somebody's replaced this at some point. It was something they had laying around because they're different sizes. I'm able to pivot that out of there. There it goes. Alright. Lay this up on top here. Let's see the grease all over the back of this from the CV joint that was bad. Alright, so caliper off, rotor off. Take that spindle nut off too. This copper pin out of here. You can see this is pretty new. Hasn't been on here for very long. If I wanted to. There we go. Alright. Don't forget this little washer. Cut that off as well. Set them aside. 32mm. Well, you saw the axle move. That's good. The axle's pretty new. I don't think it's been in there a month. That means I'm not going to have any issue getting it loose from the hub, which is great because a lot of times they get hung up in there. Not in this case. Get a pick and get that out of there. Okay, set that aside. In order to get this loose, I believe we can do this by disconnecting the front tire, like there's a rear one. We're disconnecting the tie rod end right here on this side, and that'll allow us to pivot this spindle and hub enough that we can get that axle out. We have to get that axle out in order to get to that shaft and get to that seal. So we're going to take this tie rod end, undo it, and see if we can get that out. 21 millimeter. That's a pretty good guess on my part. Obviously, these are things like this in suspension. You can do them by hand. You can do them, but they're a whole lot easier with an air gun. Other times these will start turning internally by hand. It just causes problems. So now we're going to hit this with a hammer. You always want to hit what it goes through. We're going to try to hit this and knock this loose. There it goes. Undo that nut now. Just kind of set this out of the way. Like I said, this has recently been in. Somebody's been in here to do the upper ball joint, and I believe the lower's been done as well. I haven't really looked at it, but and the CV axle. So this stuff's not corroded or anything. Came apart pretty easily, which is nice. So we're going to pivot this whole assembly if we can, and try to push this axle out. I hope we can do that. I don't know. I don't think we can do it that way. We're going to go to the front. I think and see if we can push it out. Don't know if we can or not. We may have to undo the upper ball joint. I don't think we're going to be able to. I don't think I'm going to be able to push this out without undoing that ball joint. So we're going to undo this ball joint. Fortunately, this has been done, so it's not riveted. It's bolted in. We'll undo those bolts. We're going to drop this, undo this ball joint, and we'll let the arm lower down. That should give us the clearance to get that axle out. But first, before we do that, I want to support this control arm. It's flopping all over the place. See the pressure come up on that a little bit. A lot. More than I want it to. But hopefully enough to get it out of there. Need to pivot that out. So. Alright. So now that spindle's loose, can pivot. That top ball joint being undone. Now I should have enough play in this to get this axle out of here. Push that back in there. There it goes. Alright. Should be enough to get this out of here. There it goes. Okay, so now you can see that axle's loose. I gotta pull that axle off and get that off of there. I'm just going to pick this out of the way as much as we can. I think you can see that that axle's loose. I gotta get under there, pop that axle out. There it goes. So just tap on the back of that. Alright, now that CV axle is out. I don't know how much of this you can see. Well, I should bring you down here, I guess, and take a look at it. So there's the end of the shaft coming out of the differential on the driver's side, and you can see that seal. And you can see if you look at the bottom, it's leaking. So I'm going to try to tap that seal out of there just with a screwdriver and a small pry bar. Pry it off and see if it'll come off that shaft without having to pull that shaft out. It'll save us a lot of work and a lot of effort if we can do that and put the new one in. So we're going to find out. Obviously on a lift this stuff is a little easier, not so cramped, but when we have it lift, you can see me prying that seal. That should come right off of there. There it is. It's coming right out of there. So you gotta just work around. There it goes, and that's leaking, of course, which I figured it would. That's okay. There's that seal. So, but as you can see, that shaft, the actual part that rides on the housing, the bearing in there, is a little bigger than the shaft, which is good, which means we should be able to put a new seal in there without any, without having to pull that shaft out. That'll be nice, actually. This looks good in the sense that I don't have to pull that shaft, which is nice. Saves me a lot of time and a lot of aggravation. I do believe I'm going to try to pull this snap ring. Well, I might not even need to do that. We'll check when we get the new seal and see if this snap ring, if it's going to be a problem and be in the way, then we don't want to tear or mess up the seal. So we'll pull that snap ring if we have to, but I don't want to pull it if I don't have to. We'll check it when we get the new one. I am going to clean it here. I'm going to make sure this is nice and clean, and I'm going to lubricate it with a little bit of gear oil, because I'm sure this differential is a little low. We'll check that as well. We'll refill this, make sure it's filled all the way up. But I am happy that I didn't have to pull that shaft. I've got the new seal here, and I've cleaned the housing with brake clean, sprayed that out. You can see it's leaking out there a little bit, but that's because the seal's not in there. Before I put the seal in, there is some grease in it. I added some more grease to the inner, and I lubricated the outside with 75/90, which is what this takes. So we should be able to slide this on here carefully. So if this shaft was out of here, you could just take a seal driver and drive this in. It's a little tough. So I have a, I might be able to do this with a ball joint press cup. If not, I'm going to go around and just tap this real carefully. Make sure it just keep it even and seat this in here, and drive this new seal. And you can see that seal looks pretty good, pretty tight on there. So we're going to drive this seal in, seat it. Should seal this up and put everything back together, and that should be it. We are going to, I am going to pull the plug on this differential, which is up. You can't see it, but it's up on the other side, and fill this. Make sure it's full. I know it's been leaking. I don't know how much is leaked out. I don't think it's drastic, but we want to make sure it's filled up to where it should be. When you fill this, it needs to be either on the ground or level. So on the ground, obviously, if you don't have a lift, it's tough to get under it. So I'm going to jack the back of this truck up to make it even with the front so it's level. Give me more room under here to fill this. And you just fill this when you fill it in the, I'll show it to you in a little bit here, until the fluid starts coming out of that hole. I'm just going to have to do this with the hammer and a punch. Don't wail on it. You just want to get it started. There's not a lot of room to work. You just kind of work your way around. Real easy. You don't want to wail on it. And just kind of work your way around and seat this. The new seal is in. I tapped it in just with the hammer, real carefully, just working around the seal and tapping that metal edge in. Went in pretty well. It's tough to drive that in with the shaft in there. You can't use a seal driver, obviously, because you can't get it in there. If you had a piece of pipe that was long enough, that was the right diameter, you could do it. But it's pretty easy to do. Just take your time, keep working the seal around, and try to keep it even as you seat it in the housing, and it seals right up. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to put the CV axle back on. You should just be able to push that CV axle on that snap ring, and it should pop right back in there. So there you can see the end of the axle shaft. I'm going to slide this CV back in there. I'm going to get it started on the splines. If I go in there pretty, there it goes. So now you just got to push it in. And I don't want to grab the boot, I want to grab the metal piece. And you can hear that it's locked onto the snap ring, and that's what you got to make sure. So that's good. So that's simple. Put that axle back in there. All right, now I just have to feed this back into the knuckle here. Should have enough. I was able to get it out of there. Should be able to get it back in there as well. Not a lot of room, but enough to do it. Should be. Came out. Should go back in. Fight with it a little bit here. Line that spline up. There it is. The splines are in there good. Check that inner one more time. That's good. So I'm just going to put the washer spindle nut back on there loose, so I don't have to worry about it falling off of there. Okay. So right here, you can see that ball joint. So I basically lined this ball joint back up, putting the bolts back in, the upper ball joint, getting them all started. You really should have an alignment done. If I had to break this ball joint loose, you should at least get it checked and make sure it's in alignment so you don't tear your tires up. So we're going to run these back down. So the upper ball joint is now back on. The tie rod end. Hook that back up. Okay. I'm going to leave that like that for now. We'll torque that once we put it back down on the ground. I have to look up the torque spec on it, but we'll torque that to spec. And finish it up right now. We just hang the caliper and rotor and caliper back on. Knocking that pad out of there, it's not helping me. Putting the two slide bolts back in. The caliper. Snug, I didn't tighten that up yet. I'm going to get the top one started. I always try to start these by hand. Make sure they're not cross-threaded. They're going in okay. And once they're started, okay. caliper, rotor back on, everything's back together. That's it. That's pretty much it. We're going to put this, obviously put this back on the ground. I'm going to go through and kind of show you the refilling the differential. Make sure it's filled up. I don't know how much is lost out of it. There's some, so we're definitely going to fill that back up, make sure it's up to where it should be. That's pretty much it. Not a very difficult thing to do. A little strange that it looks like whoever was in here doing the CV, I'm guessing, put an O-ring outside of that seal for the differential, which of course won't work. It's not what it's supposed to do, and it leaks still. I'm really surprised that they just didn't make a phone call to the customer and say, hey, we're in here, you need to put a seal in here, and you're talking about a $15 seal, probably $10 or $15 a seal, and not very much time. Put a seal in it, but it's done. Hopefully it won't leak, shouldn't leak. Make sure this differential is filled up. I'm going to show you how to do that, but I have the truck up on 4 jack stands. The car needs to be level when you do this, so you get the proper amount in there. So you can do it on the ground, but it's hard to get under it, so I had the front up already. I put the back up on jack stands, car, truck's sitting level, and we're going to go in and we're going to fill this differential and make sure it's got the right amount of fluid. I've got my high-tech filler here, which is just a bottle of gear oil, 75/90 for this truck. That's what it requires. And this is a piece of 3/8 inch fuel line that I had sitting around. It's new, hasn't been used. I'll use it for this. It just allows you to stick that fuel line up into the hole to fill it. It makes it a lot easier. It's kind of tough to get a bottle in there. You just don't have the room, so I'll just use that. We're going to get underneath and try to show you this. I'm going to attempt to show you this, but you can see that plug right on the, you can barely see it there. See if I can point it out. I'm trying to do this one-handed, which is a feed in itself. So right here, it's a rubber plug on the side of the differential. That's the fill hole. So we're just going to pry that off of there with a screwdriver. Should be able to pry that right out pretty easily. It's going to leak. It's going to expect. Got the pan sitting here, so you see it leaking just a little bit from me taking that out. And so I've got a pan under here. And it may not take much of this at all. Looks like it's leaking out of there now. So what leaked may not have been much, but we're just going to do this. I'm going to put some fluid in there, make sure that it is completely filled up as it should be, and then we're going to put that plug back in and we'll be done. That's pretty much it. I replaced the seal on the front of the differential on the driver's side that was leaking. Refilled the differential to make sure it was, the fluid level was where it was supposed to be. It had leaked, but it didn't take very much to fill it back up. The only thing we had left to do is put the wheel back on, driver's side, put it back on the ground, and torque the spindle nut to spec, and this is pretty much done. Not a very difficult job. It was nice to be able to pull that seal and not have to pull the shaft and put a new seal on it without having to remove that shaft. Made it a lot easier, but it's an easy thing to fix. I still don't know, because I haven't done this particular vehicle, I haven't been in a differential, whether or not that intermediate shaft has a C-clip on the inside or whether it's just a snap ring. If you see this and you know, add a comment. I'm looking all over the place to try to get a good understanding of whether it is a C-clip that has to be removed from inside the differential or whether it's just a snap ring. I haven't been able to find anything, even Mitchell Pro data, I can't find it in that either. It doesn't really make it clear whether or not there's a C-clip or snap ring. So if you know that, add a comment. Maybe it helps somebody else out if they have to do this. I hope you enjoyed. Come back again, subscribe if you like the videos. Thanks for watching.